Broadcasting live from the Wellness Wonderland, you're listening to the Wellness Wonderland Radio. I'm Katie, and each week I chat with the most inspirational people on the planet on how to stay inspired in all areas of life. As you listen, feel free to tweet at me at Katie Dalebout or use the hashtag Wellness Wonderland. I'd love to hear your aha moments. So grab your headphones and listen on the go, or cuddle up with a notebook as we dive in deep with authentic conversations right here in Wonderland. Hey guys, welcome back. Today's episode is awesome, and I won't talk too long before we get into that, but I want to give a couple announcements and mention a couple things. And the first of those is just how truly grateful I am for every single one of you listening. I've been getting so many nice emails and tweets and messages about the pod and how it's been impacting you guys. And it means the world to me to hear that I've been accompanying you on your commutes and your drives and your walks and while you're doing laundry. And it just means the world to me because I love listening to podcasts and audiobooks and music, and it makes me so happy that you've chosen to put me in your earbuds or in your car stereo, right? It just really, really lights me up. So thank you. And if you want to support the show and make sure I can keep pumping out these episodes, you know the drill. There's a couple ways you can do that. The best way is to tell a friend. The more people we can get listening to the show, the more people we get living their life in this way, and that's awesome. So the other way is to donate to the show if you feel that you want to show a little value to something that you've gotten value from. There's a link in the show notes of this episode, and there's a link on my website, thewellnesswonderland.com, to donate. And you can donate in any amount, but it's cool the way I have it set up. If you donate each amount, you get a little different swag. So if you give a certain amount, you'll get a tweet from me. You'll get to suggest a guest on the show, or you'll get to have even a free session with me, which would be super cool. So yeah, it might be something you're into. And it helps keep the lights on here in Wonderland and allows me to produce more content more frequently. And I'd love that if you wanted to help in that way. But, you know, above all, telling a friend is awesome. So today's episode, yeah, it's a great one. It's Thanksgiving week, so happy Thanksgiving if you're here in America. I know a lot of you are not, and today's guest actually is a Canadian. It's my friend and mentor, Natalie MacNeil, and I'll let you hear all about her and her story from her in today's episode. But just to bring you up to the present, since we recorded this back in May, Natalie and I have become great friends, actually. And I went to visit her 2 weeks ago in Canada, and it was a blast. It's so awesome connecting with people in person that you've been following for a while online, because you already know so much about them that it's pretty groovy to connect and pick up like you've been friends forever. So that was really cool. She's an awesome person. She has so much savvy business advice as an entrepreneur, and also just life advice. She's a great person, and you'll get to know that, and you'll get to love her as much as I do in today's episode. But we don't talk about this in the episode, but she has this amazing online community for budding entrepreneurs. It's called the Conquer Club, and there's links to this in the show notes of this episode. But she's actually wrapping up week 8 of this Conquer Summit, and it's this 9-week summit where she's been interviewing the most awesome people. It's completely free, and it's all online, so you can do it from anywhere. But she's had on people that I've known about, like Wellness Wonderland radio guests like Latham Thomas, and then some other people that I didn't know that I know now and I love, like Nisha Moodley, if some of you probably know her, and a bunch of other people who are just really cool peeps. And the finale episode is coming up, and it's like groundbreaking because she's actually going to blow a Guinness world record for the largest online business seminar. And when you hear like online business seminar, that's like, whoa, that sounds intense. But actually, it's like not your average business seminar. This is Natalie helping us plan our 2015 year in style. So I'm going to be there. I'm psyched about it. It's happening Wednesday, December 3rd, 7 p.m., all online. You can watch the replay too, but it'd be cool to be there in person. And it's a celebration of the last night of the Conquer Summit. So the link to sign up through my link is in the show notes of this episode, so make sure to sign up there. And you'll be able to access all of the previous interviews, all of the 9 interactive interviews. They were all live streamed, and she's like so cool. She has an Emmy, and she has a studio, and everything she does is of such great quality. Like each video is really nice quality, and it comes with a interactive worksheet from whatever the guest talked about with actionables, which is super rad. So anyways, check that out. If you dig Natalie in this episode, definitely check that out. The link will be below in the show notes. Definitely visit the show notes. There's tweetables there. And if you guys are local, come hang out with me. If you live in the Detroit area, I'm speaking twice. I'm speaking on the 6th of December and also on the 7th of December. That's a Sunday at the Goddess on the Go event. And if you get your tickets, I've got a discount code for you. Just type in my name, Katie, Katie, at checkout, and you get $15 off of your ticket, which is cool. So the links to all of that information about where to find me speaking will be in the show notes as well. So I gotta go to those show notes, guys. Like, gotta check them out. Sometimes I'm like, does anyone go to the show notes? I'm not sure. But I do them because I enjoy it. It's like me taking notes on the episode with what I learned. So I enjoy it. But I hope you read them too. Anyways, have a great week. Have a great Thanksgiving. And I will see you in 2 weeks with another episode. Enjoy Natalie and have an awesome day wherever you're listening. I'm grateful for you. And I hope that these episodes impact you positively and you can take that into your life as we end the year, go into the new year with grace, with ease, with pleasure, and with a whole lot of savvy business knowledge that you're going to get in this episode. Welcome back, everyone. I am super thrilled for today's episode because my mentor and huge inspiration, Natalie MacNeil, is in Wonderland. Natalie is an Emmy award-winning media producer, best-selling author of She Takes on the World, a guide to being your own boss, working happy, and living on purpose. Adore that title, right? She's also the creator of SheTakesOnTheWorld.com, which is one of the top sites on the planet, not just in my site history, but on the planet for entrepreneurial women. And she has been recognized by Forbes as one of the top 10 websites for entrepreneurial women. And she's been featured in People Style Watch, The Wall Street Journal, CNN, Entrepreneur.com, Globe and Mail, Mashable, so much more. She's just everywhere. I admire her so much, and I really admire her authenticity and her willingness to help people and to help entrepreneurs, and specifically female entrepreneurs, fearlessly sharing herself and helping others to have a life and a business that they love. So I personally relate to you so much, Natalie, and I know you travel a lot and you've been traveling a lot, so thank you for visiting Wonderland.
Oh, I'm so excited to be in Wonderland. I love you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yay! Oh, this is going to be fun. It's so cool with the internet. Obviously it can bring so many people together, but I think especially in, reading someone's words is one thing, but I think when you watch their videos and you listen to their voice on a podcast, you can feel so much more connected to them. And it's really a groovy experience to talk to you, but I already feel like I know you, and you're just what you
Absolutely
what you come off as.
It's so true. I actually met with another podcaster as well, Jamie Tardy, today, and I had chatted with her so many times before online, and this was the first time we met in person, and I was trying to remember if we had even met in person a couple other times. I'm like, we must have, because I feel like I know you so well, and as soon as we saw each other and we embraced, and it was just, I mean, she feels like a really good friend, and you can just dive into a conversation and feel like you know this person that you've actually never connected with in the physical world before. It's just so crazy, and it's so powerful that we live in this time and can share with so many people and meet so many people that even 10 years ago we wouldn't have been able to. Like, my business and what I do now would have pretty much been impossible 10 years ago, which is really, really strange and awesome all at the same time. Like, what we do just was not possible.
It's crazy.
10 years ago, yes, we were getting there, but beyond that, no. And that's a hugely powerful tool that we have, and it's great to connect with people like you and your audience because of the internet.
And it's just changing so fast. Yeah. Who knows what'll be available 10 years from now? We'll probably be like touching or something.
It's so true. So true.
So speaking of that, this is where I want to start, is zooming the lens back to start with your journey to where you are. And I know, we can even incorporate travel into that, because I know travel is a huge part of what brought you to this work. So I'd love for you to speak about, your journey to building your business, making mindfulness part of your life, and also how that travel experience was such an eye-opening thing for you and important for your personal growth.
Absolutely. So for me, travel really led me down this path that I'm on today. And I think when we grow up in the school system, and, I think maybe you and a lot of your listeners can relate to this, but we're told to be a certain way. We're told to do things a certain way, and it really clouds our ability to hear our own inner voice. And for me, that inner voice was saying, entrepreneurship is for you. You've got to do this. Like, that's what you were meant to do. You've got to do this on your own. There's so much in store for you. You just need to listen to that. And I kept hearing that again and again. But at the same time, my high school guidance counselors and my teachers and even my family was saying, you do really well in school, so why don't you go to law school, or why don't you consider this? I feel like when people are excelling in school, we tell them you should be a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant. Or on the flip side of that, if people aren't excelling in school, there are a lot of entrepreneurs who have dropped out of the regular school system. And so when people are underperforming in school, we don't take those students aside and try to help them figure out what their purpose is. We say, well, you're just not cut out for that university thing. You should maybe consider these career paths instead. Right. And we have this way of sort of classifying and categorizing everyone and everything. And so I started to fall into more of that you should go to law school classification in high school. And, for a while, I kind of thought that that's what I would do. And it wasn't until I was getting ready to graduate, I was really trying to figure out what I should do, if I should start my own business or if I should just, go to law school. And I decided to go to Europe. I had already traveled a little bit on my own, but this was going to be a bigger trip on my own. I just wanted to get away from everyone else's voices and opinions. I just wanted time and space to hear my own inner voice. And it was on a road trip through the Czech Republic, actually, that
it's like my favorite story.
I love telling this just because it's still like,
I know, it gives me
goosebumps. Yeah. And I was just driving down the road listening to David Guetta's "The World Is Mine."
I love that song so much more now because of the story.
It's so great. It's a great song. I mean, great song, very energizing, and I'm kind of like dancing and driving, and there's nobody else on the road. And at the same time as I'm listening to this song, I drive by this giant globe, and I have a picture of it that you've probably seen in my book. And it's like a 2-story high globe statue that says, "The world is yours." And I was just like, no way. So I pulled over and I just sort of sat there honoring that moment. And, I can't remember my inner voice ever yelling at me quite that loudly, at least not at that point in my life. I'd never been so clear on anything in my life. In that moment, I just knew I had to start my own business. I knew, that was the biggest sign the universe could give me, just plopped right down in front of me. And that moment changed everything for me. And that sounds crazy to some people, maybe not to your listeners, but I just knew in that moment that is the path I was going to move forward with, and that I was going to go home. And when I graduated, I was going to do my own thing and start a business doing something I was really excited to dive into. And that's really the path that has led me to where I am today, and to all those other things that have happened since that moment that some of which you mentioned in the introduction for our interview today. So you've just got to listen to what your life is telling you, and to be open to that guidance. And it's not always comfortable or easy to follow that path, and to just listen to what your inner guidance is telling you, but it's always worth it. And I don't regret it at all. It's just been the most crazy, amazing adventure that I've been on since then.
I love that so much. And it's so powerful to hear that, because so many people might have those synchronicities, those amazing things like that you just spoke about. They're not only available to all of us, but they're happening to all of us. We just have to be aware enough to look, right? And to notice.
Yeah, and let me tell our listeners too, sometimes it's the tiniest whispers that can lead to the most profound shifts in your life. And you don't need a huge sign. I got this huge sign that was, right on my path. And that's not the way it always happens. And you have to pay attention to all the little signs and all the guidance that you're being given all the time. It's always happening and available to you moment to moment. It's just tuning in and listening. I feel like the more you listen, when you listen to those tiny whispers, sometimes they'll snowball into much bigger things, but you need to start by listening. And when you feel intuitively like you're supposed to do something, or you feel like maybe what you're doing right now isn't what you're meant to be doing, just at least start to explore that and to honor that guidance that you're being given in some way. It doesn't mean you have to make a radical shift right away, but just honor the tiny whispers, because those will just keep getting louder and louder if you ignore them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big thing, for people what I love that we're talking about this is that you saw that there was another way. There's another way than going the full-time job with the benefits and the,
all that good stuff.
Right, yeah. Right. With the, and I think it's a generational thing too, because like we were saying at the beginning of the caller, I don't even know if we were recording then, or yeah, we were, but when this stuff didn't exist, like, yes, entrepreneurship existed for our parents' generation, but not in the way that it does now, like not what Natalie does, when they were kids, like, your career didn't exist. So of course it wasn't something that, we have to kind of cut them a break and saying that, like, of course that talking about what you do today as a career option for you when you were 6 years old wasn't something that your parents were doing, because it didn't exist. So I think that's really powerful that you at that time said, okay, there is another way. There's going to be fear. There's going to be stress, but I'm going to do it anyways because I'm intuitively filled up by this, and this intuitively feels good.
Yes, and you know what? It's, you talk about when I was 6 years old, that what I do now didn't even exist. Someone couldn't have told me, you're going to grow up and, do this and this and this. But I've got to tell you this fantastic story. So when I was 6 years old, and you just pulled the 6 years old,
yeah.
There was a gentleman who lived across the street from me named Kevin. And he was the first person I knew that had the internet, that got the internet. He was the first person I knew that had a computer in his home. And he would take me over after school because I was a very curious child. I loved having really deep conversations with adults. And he took me over to his house one day and he was like, I want to show you something. And I knew that he had the computer and he would open, it was one of the really old school, like Apple computers. And he would open the paint program that they had on it. And I loved just drawing in on it. And it just made me so, so happy. And he was like, I'm going to show you something really cool. And I was like, oh, you're going to open the paint program for me. He's like, no. This is something different. And it's called the internet.
Oh my God.
And I remember feeling something in that moment. And, he opened it up for me. He opened up his browser. I don't even think we had Netscape Navigator yet as a browser. It was something completely different. And he said to me, this is the internet and it is going to be so powerful. And one day, this is going to be your life. This is your future.
Where is this
in
guy?
That
Does
moment,
he know what you do now?
I actually ran into his wife very recently, and I was telling her this. I was like, you've got to tell Kevin that, but even at that time, I just felt, I remember feeling something. I remember feeling the power of that and feeling like, this is my future. Like, it just resonated with me on like such a deep soul level.
Totally.
And I'll never forget it. And I was telling his wife this story too. I was like, Kevin's the one who showed me the internet and he told me it was going to be my future, and I'll never forget it because I'll never forget how I felt in that moment.
Wow.
And these kinds of careers didn't even exist then, but I don't know, you just feel those like little inklings sometimes. I'm sure everyone listening has felt that before, where something just really resonates for you, or you get those goosebumps, those like warm, fuzzy feelings.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny for me. It's kind of in the same thing, and you bring up that makes me think of a story in my life. Like, and I've said this, before to the listeners, like in college, I studied broadcast journalism and I thought I wanted to, be a TV news reporter. But what I realized was, I really only wanted to talk about topics that I liked and interview people on things that inspired me. And so, but to do that, I had to take a lot of radio classes. And I was like, oh, I just want to get to the TV classes. Come on. But it's actually been very beneficial. And I never, podcasts didn't exist when I started school. So, it's interesting to see that. And I remember too, I'm probably like dating myself now, but like, in elementary school, when I was in like first grade, we'd get taken to this special room that had like 6 computers in them, and they were like huge.
Yes!
Yeah, and we'd like go in there, we'd play Kid Picks. Did you guys have that?
Oh my goodness, yes.
I think that's what it was called. But I remember going home and like telling my mom, like, someday you're going to be able to watch TV on this thing called the computer, and I'm going to be on TV on the computer. And I remember her being like, are you sure, honey? Like, I don't know. But, like, here we are. I was right.
Isn't it amazing, though, that we had that when we were children? Like, you just have those little fleeting moments of feeling something. Like, you feel that connection to it, even though, I mean, you didn't know how it was going to turn out or what it was going to be like in 20 years or 25 years. But, it gives me goosebumps.
It really does. And it's really cool to go back to, talking about us as children, because someone I know, Natalie, that you know and respect and have interviewed, and a past Wellness Wonderland radio guest, Latham Thomas, always says that, kids come in fully formed. Like, they know a lot more than we do, and they're a lot closer to God, the universe, than we are, because they haven't picked up a lot of this gunk that we have to kind of expel. So, those intuitive hits that we had as kids aren't to be ignored. And it's kind of a good lead in, to my next question. But what I wanted to talk to you about is like those kind of things we pick up like a limp brush, which is that fear over time. And you say, one of your great lines is the best way to have your dream job is to create it. And with that, there's so much fear around entrepreneurship that we've kind of been alluding to. But, I'd love to, and a lot of that comes from outside influences, especially, when you're younger, your parents and your really your parents, lots of other things, but I think our parents, first they want us to be safe and then they want us to be happy because they love us so much. And, or whatever situation you're in, you have that kickback. So I'd love to talk about some of your top tips for handling all of the fears, whether it's bad or other things that come around starting your own business.
Yeah, and there are so many, like you mentioned. And I think, a lot of people that I speak to who maybe felt a calling to do something on their own, or they had this idea or this gut feeling that they needed to try something or they needed to pursue this idea. The family situation or the opinions of others is always one of the top things that hold people back. We hate being judged by other people. We hate when our life choices are judged by other people. We all want to feel seen and heard and accepted. We want our ideas to be accepted, especially by the people that we love. And when I was starting my business, I think one of the hardest things was having other people question what I was doing, because growing up, I always was, top of my class. I always excelled. And that came with a lot of expectations from other people on what I should do and opinions about what I should be doing. And so when I started my business, there were so many people who judged that and would tell me that I was too young, or I didn't have the money that it was going to take to grow a business. I needed more capital, or that I was, wasting my life because I would have done such a great job as a lawyer. I would have done so well in law school, or I could have been a doctor, but instead I was going to waste time like doing my own thing. And what really hurt me the most, though, was people not even taking time to understand what I do, because like you and I have been talking about, it is really new.
Yes.
And especially for people like my grandparents who just couldn't really, and I'm not blaming them at all. I love them dearly. They just didn't know. They still don't really know. And to have any sort of judgment passed on what I was doing, I would get very, very defensive. And finally, one day, I knew that I had to let it go. I knew that it was going to hold me back. And it really was a very sudden, very sudden decision to just let it all go. It was, I think, one day during a meditation that I was in that I was like, I just saw almost like clouds in my world, all of these people and their opinions, and how that was holding me back from really shining my brightest light on the world. And finally one day I was like, you know what, I just have to let it all go. I've got to release all of these people who are judging me. I've got to follow my own path, follow my own heart. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do, is just listen to your own inner voice, follow your heart, knowing that you're still going to get criticized. You're still going to have people question what you're doing. Sometimes you're going to love those people so much, and not having their support is going to really, really hurt, and you have to do it anyway. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs are in that boat. And the other thing I hear from a lot of people who maybe want to start a business, but they haven't done it yet, or they haven't turned that idea into something viable, or even move forward with trying to turn that idea into something at all, it's because they think it's too hard, or they tell themselves, I don't know how to do that. Like, no one in my family has started a business before. Right. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to set everything up. It sounds really complicated. And so it's very easy to talk ourselves out of things. And
but they have
what
you.
I encourage you to talk yourself into it because really I had no idea what I was doing when I first started out. I have really been getting the hang of it recently, but it's been 10 years. It's been 10 years since I started my first business, and it takes a while. It takes a while to build traction and to build an audience. And especially in the last 1 to 2 years, we've had a lot of growth, and people have said, "Oh, this is amazing that you've like been able to create all of this so quickly. Like, can you help me turn my blog into a business, or can you help me grow my business?" And a lot of people, when I tell them that I started my first business 10 years ago now, they're shocked because they're like, "What? I've only heard about you though in the last 6 months." Or maybe you have a bunch of listeners listening right now, never heard of me before, and I've been doing this for 10 years. And that's okay. It takes time, and you really have to be in it for the long haul, and it's one step at a time, and you really have to enjoy the journey, as cliche as that sounds. And I think that's what I've learned the most in the last year or so, is just that patience. I'm a lot more patient now, and I accept that it's all part of a bigger plan, and sometimes things don't happen the way I want them to happen, or they're not happening as quickly as I would like them to happen. But I know that it's all happening for a reason, and that, every day I'm just surrendering and saying, what will you, from A Course in Miracles, which I know you are a student of as well, what will you have me do today? Like, how can I be of service today? And just always surrendering what I'm here to do, and remembering that ultimately I'm here to be of service, and I am just following my guidance that I'm receiving, and taking things as they come. I'm not trying to force things anymore, or try to always control every little situation, because you just stress yourself out so much trying to hold on to control, and it's just not worth it. So it's been a really big shift for me in the last, especially, I'd say 2 years. That's been a really big one, just letting go of the need to control everything, and the attachment to the results. And I think Deepak Chopra, in the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, which is a fantastic book if anyone hasn't read it yet, especially when you're figuring out what you want to be doing, and what your purpose is, and maybe even whether you want to start a business. I think he has some great advice for entrepreneurs as well. And this whole law of detachment, and just releasing the outcome. And it doesn't mean that you don't have goals. It doesn't mean that you don't have those deep-rooted desires and things that you really want. It just means that you are detaching yourself from that end result and not trying to control it. Sometimes things turn out even better than you could have planned for. And I feel like that's where I'm at with my life right now. 5 years ago, if you would have said, in 5 years, you are going to be this and this and this and doing this and this and this, I would have been like, really? No, that's crazy. And sometimes you just have to surrender and trust that there's a bigger plan that you don't even know about.
Totally. And I want to pick up on a couple of things that you said there, but one of them is just, we dream in a fraction of what's capable for us, right? And so that just that picks up on that for sure. And then, the other piece you mentioned about it being about the journey, and as our dear Danielle Laporte says, you may get the goal in mind, but still feel kind of like, uninspired. And so it's really about, you might as well just enjoy the journey. And there's no such thing as an overnight success. Like today, I just Instagrammed this. You'll love this, Natalie, but I Instagrammed this thing that said, Oprah wasn't built in a day, which is so true. It can seem like Natalie just like came from out of nowhere, and now she's like huge and amazing and everywhere and awesome. Like, but she just told us here that like it's taken her 10 years, So I don't know about you, listener, but that's inspiring to me. So
and there's gonna be 20 years from now, I'm gonna be like, oh, this, I finally feel like I'm getting this whole thing. Like It's been 30 years, but it's totally rocking. Like, this is where I want to be. And every year does just keep getting better and better. And we have a more solid foundation every year. And now I have a team as well. And that's been another big thing. Once you get to a certain point and you can be bringing on other people to help you. You can hire other people to help you. You can bring other people into that mission to support that mission that you have. That all really helps too. And so when people are just starting out and they're all by themselves, like there's only so many things that you can personally do in a day. And now we're able to do a lot more because it's a team. It's not just me, and that's really important too. So things keep getting better and they keep moving in the right direction. And like I said, I'm just learning to enjoy the journey a little bit more, and I'm just practicing patience every opportunity I can get. And I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate to that, because I do think we are a very impatient generation, and I think that we are so wired to expect that instant gratification. And that's just not how it is when you are talking about a higher purpose for your whole life. Yeah. You have to practice some patience there. It's all happening as it should. And I always say that you're always where you need to be. And where you need to be isn't always where you want to be. And that's okay, because you're learning very important lessons that are going to take you to the next place you need to go. So just remember that you're always where you need to be.
So good. I just recently interviewed Nancy Levin, the last interview I did, and she has this great quote that says, "Enjoy the space between no longer and not yet." And I think that that's so beautiful, like, and goes off of what you said, is the place that you need to be might not be where you want to be, because, you know, it's very easy to, and I'm going to just speak for myself right now, you know, as I'm building my business, I so want to be like, oh, you know, I want to be like, have a business like Natalie's yesterday, but it's like, no, like, might as well enjoy this like small, humble beginnings time where I didn't really know what was happening. It was kind of weird and funky, but like, this is really cool too, you know? So it's just really, you know, goes back to that line that's such a cliche now, but it's just so true. Like, who cares that it's a cliche? Enjoy the journey. It's so spot on.
And I mean, every step along that, it really does prepare you. And it's not until, like, Steve Jobs always talked about how you always can only connect the dots when you look back.
Quote.
Right? Yeah. And it's so true, because I see all these little things now that I didn't even know that She Takes on the World was going to be a business. I mean, when I started She Takes on the World, it was just a little personal blog that the seed of inspiration for was planted in that moment when I saw that big globe that said, "The world is yours." And it was maybe a week or two later that I woke up in the middle of the night with this. I had this dream about She Takes on the World. And I wrote it. I had my BlackBerry at the time, and I often in the middle of the night will just jot notes down on my phone. If I ever have something where I'm like, wow, that's really good, or I'm having a really cool dream, I always write it down, because you'll never remember it in the morning if you don't. And so I had written this down, this She Takes on the World thing, a couple weeks after that big sign. And I didn't even first thing in the morning remember. And it wasn't until a couple hours into my day, I think I had finally got some food in me and my energy levels were up. And I was like, did something happen last night? Did I like have an idea or something? I kind of remember waking up, and I opened up my little notebook that I always, it's like the first thing I do before I go to bed is I open my little notebook app on my phone and just leave it there. So if I wake up, I can just jot down a few things.
Oh, that's so smart.
And I opened it up and I was like, She Takes on the World. Yeah, that's what I woke up for. That's the dream I was having. And, you know, I ended up just getting that domain name. And I, just started blogging. It was like a little blog when, I don't even know if the Blogger platform still exists now, but it was on blogger.com, those like Blogspot domains. And I just started writing about building my other business and traveling and graduating from university and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't know it was going to be a business, but you listen to those little whispers and to that calling, and it pulls you. It really does. And looking back now, I can see where all the dots connected and where certain opportunities led to other bigger opportunities that led to being able to turn She Takes on the World into a business. And it is really freaking cool to look back and see some of the things that have happened that have led me to where I am today. And I think it's important that you connect those dots and you look at how things have panned out, maybe in ways that you didn't really expect.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's funny that that quote, Natalie, that Steve Jobs quote comes up literally every podcast that I do, because I usually say it because the way I format this show is looking back over, this really successful person like yourselves' life and connecting those dots and seeing how they got from point A to point B to point C, which in the moment they had no idea was moving them in the direction of their dreams, but they just were like awake in a dream saying yes. And
yes.
That's what you did. This idea came to you in a dream. I've never heard that part of the story, and that was super cool to hear. And so I think honestly though, it's a big reflection of your openness to receive all of this guidance. So I would love to know, and I've never heard you speak about this publicly before, but like clearly spirituality and mindfulness and meditation are a part of your life, and listening to your intuition. So was that a part of your life when you were on that trip where you got that guidance, or when did it really become part of your life, and how did you find that part of the inner work that you do?
Yeah, that's a great question, Katie, because I've actually been working on a new book, and so I go a little bit deeper into all of this, because I don't usually talk about it too much, because I feel like She Takes on the World has a certain brand voice, and now I'm creating this other brand and rebuilding my personal brand, which will include more of the spirituality. And I think the first time for a while, I was more disconnected from it. I feel like that sometimes happens after we are children. We start to get all those clouds in the way, and then it's our job to kind of remove them all and reconnect to that light that we all have access to all the time. And the first time I actually ever remember meditating, I was very, very sick in the hospital as a child. And I feel like that's the first time I would spend time with people during the day, and my family would be there, but then at night I had to be there by myself. And that's when I would like call on guidance and just ask to be like supported and surrounded. And it was really, like, looking back now, I didn't know at the time that it was meditation that I was doing or what I was really doing, but I felt so called to do it. And I was quite a few years later, maybe about 10 years ago now. So when I was just starting to maybe figure out if I wanted to pursue business and stuff full time, it may have been I've had my business for 10 years, so it may have been about 12 years ago. I was on this trip to Asia, and I just remember I was at these like temples and stuff, and there was this one monk there, and he was just so happy, and it just looked so peaceful. And he invited me to sit down and try it, and I hadn't actually sat down with the intention of meditating at that point. And so I sat down, and I didn't last for very long, quite honestly. I mean, now I can sit in meditation for quite a long time, and I often do, especially when I'm making big decisions. And at that time, it was just, a minute. And I just didn't have the patience to sit longer than that, and that's okay. He was like, it's okay. Like, you keep trying, and you'll, be able to go for longer, because he'll, sit in meditation most of the day. But it was just when I got down on that mat and I closed my eyes, and it was only for a minute, it was an immediate feeling of being home, that feeling you get when you go home after a long trip or after a long day at work, and you just get home and you're like, I'm home. That's what it felt like in that moment. And I wanted it. I wanted that moment and that feeling to last. And so that's when I started sitting again, and I'd get up in the morning and I'd sit on my yoga mat, and that's when it all started happening again. That's when I started feeling connected again. I started A Course in Miracles around that time, like very shortly after I started connecting to more of my spiritual teachers, and then I was also starting my business too. And I feel like in the business world, it was always interesting because, and even now, it's taken me a long time to realize that I do want to have a personal brand where I incorporate all of that. It's very important to me. I have a lot of meditations I want to share, a lot of tools I want to share. I've done a lot of I've done meridian energy therapy training, and I've done my EFT courses and all that. And it's something I feel very strongly about and want to incorporate more in my work. And I think being in the business world and being a young woman starting this company, I also felt like I had to, for a while, be someone that I'm not, because I wanted to get respect from people. I wanted to show people that, I could be taken seriously. And so for a long time, I kept those worlds very separate. And of course, you can't do that. And eventually they do collide, and you have one world and one life, and it's all one, whether you look at it that way or not. And so I'm at a point where I don't want to compartmentalize things anymore. And so for me, it was, like that slow awakening. And then in the last few years, I've done some trips, including to Bali, and worked with a lot of spiritual healers, both in Bali and in Peru, and had these like beautiful experiences that have really translated into helping me a lot in my business as well. So I think it's really important that you listen to the guidance you're getting. And I guess that my biggest takeaway, I know I've been talking now and I went on a very long tangent here, but I think what you need to do in terms of actionable advice here is that when you do hear that, maybe you're listening and you have had a business idea before, or there is that whisper or those little signs that you've got, and you feel like, maybe I should do this, or maybe this would be the right decision, or even though people tell me I shouldn't do this, I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. And everyone's getting those little whispers and that guidance, and it's really important that you act upon it in some way, because when you start acting upon it, that's when it gets a lot more clear. And it's not, like I said before, it's not the big signs. It's paying attention to those really small things and then just acting on it. And intuition is, everyone has intuition. Everyone has the power to tap into that. And sometimes you feel it in goosebumps. You'll get goosebumps when you hear something or you think about something, or you feel it in your body when you're making a decision. Next time you're making a decision, close your eyes and think about how it feels to make that one decision, and then how you think it feels to make the other. And usually, I know for me, I'll get that sort of that happy feeling when it's going to be the right decision, or that I feel it in my stomach. And some of you can probably relate to this. If it's not a good decision, or you probably shouldn't do it, you'll like feel it in the gut. That's why they call it a gut feeling. It's like all in the stomach. Yeah. And so it's about listening to that. Another great meditation, I forget where I had first heard this from. It was either a philosopher or a business person. Someone was talking about how when they have to make a decision, they think about the decision as food and eating it. So they visualize the decision as a piece of food, and then they eat it in their visualization, and they determine which food makes them happier, which food agrees with them better. And they just have this like visualization of eating the decision.
That's interesting.
And which one goes down better. And so recently, I thought that was really cool. So I've done that for a few decisions recently, and it's kind of awesome. So just, make sure that you're listening, and you're doing those visualizations, and you're really thinking things through and doing the thing that feels right for you. If it doesn't feel good, if you feel like, going into your job every day is sucking the life out of you and the energy and the light, if it's blocking your light, if you feel like every day you're getting up and there's no excitement there and it's just dread to have to go into work, you need to think about what it is you can do next to get yourself out of that situation, who you can connect with, surrounding yourself with a great support system of people who are going to raise you up and help you to tap into who you're meant to be. And as you do that, you'll unlock more and more of that guidance. And eventually it's like I know our friend Gabby Bernstein says all the time that, she meditates constantly. Meditation is you meditate all day long. It's
Right.
not something that you go and you sit on a mat for and you do for just 10 minutes. It's about listening all day long and being connected to spirit all day
Yeah.
long. And I think that's really important.
Totally. And I think being of service is a sense of meditation, and that's what you do in your business. And I think that just shows through so much in what you do, Natalie. And I want to say that, on the call, that, it shows that you're such a kind and generous person with what you share. You've personally mentored me so much. And so I'd love if you could talk about that mentoring relationship and why you've devoted yourself and so much of your time to see the growth of others, and maybe your advice for finding mentors and being a good mentor yourself, because I think that's really important for people to learn. And before you answer that, I have to tell you, I was like cyber stalking you to prepare for our interview, and I watched this amazing video of you speaking, I think at your college or your university, and or maybe it was to a high school, I'm not sure. But anyways, these young girls were asking you these like amazing questions, and you were so kind to them, and asking you things, everything from bullying to business, and all sorts of things, writing a book, whatever. But
I don't even know what this one is. Was this on YouTube?
Yeah, it was on YouTube.
I'm trying to think of what that would have been.
You were so kind, and gave them hey, talk to me after, and just anyways, you were so kind. So I would love for you to talk about why you did that, and why you gave your time, and how you connect with your mentors, and when you were starting out, how you found mentors, and just that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, mentors are so important. And at the same time, people are like, yes, I know they're important, but how do you find them? And, just like you were saying, I don't know where you saw this video. I don't even know if I've seen it. But there are a lot of times silly. When, I'll speak to groups of young girls, and they'll say, I've been working on a book. Can you help me with my book? And I'm like, what? You're 16 and you're writing a book. Of course I'm going to help you. That's amazing. Or, they'll have an issue with a bully or someone, and I'll talk to them privately after. I'll give them my personal phone number and my email address, and I'll tell them, no matter what, if you have an issue, you call me. It's not, it's okay. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what time it is. You call me if there's ever anything that you really need to talk about with somebody. And it's important that we be the leader. I think, especially with the paths that we are on, Katie, I think it's important that we all support each other and support other people who are really, really wanting to show up in the world, show up and shine really bright. And there's either other people or there's those clouds in the way. And I think it's really important that all of us in this community, because I know that you have a lot of fantastic listeners as well, I think that's just our responsibility here. It's not something that we can just ignore or say, we don't have time, or that we're too busy. These people need us. And especially I look at these young girls as, the next generation that are needing that guidance, because then they're going to be able to pass it on to that next generation, and they're going to be able to be their best selves and to grow into who they're meant to be on the planet. And I think today especially, we have a lot of issues in schools with bullying and all that, and people are can be really mean. And I think I've heard a lot of really heartbreaking stories, and we've seen them on the news and all that. And that's why I just feel like mentoring the next generation and making time for those young people that really look up to us is just really important, and something that is our responsibility. So that's what I'll say about that one. But in terms of mentoring in general, I think that there's always people who are willing to help you on your journey. And mentoring is always a two-way street. It's never about you just, asking for help from someone. I think there's always something that you can give. And There's relationships that I have with some of my mentors who, they'll call me and ask me for a connection, or they'll ask me for help with something on social media, or ask me to look at one of the strategies that they're working on and give them input. And I'm like, what? You want my input? And it goes back to recognizing that we all have something to give and we all have something to share, and we're all always just learning from each other. And every person that we meet and come across can offer us lessons, but we can offer them lessons as well. And so I think it's important to not look at mentors as, put them way up on a pedestal and see them as being so much further ahead than us and so much better than us, because it's just not.
That's such a good point too. And you have such a good video on that. We'll link that below.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. And the only other thing I would say is just be mindful of people's time. I mean, some of my most valuable mentors are not people that I get to meet up with every Friday for lunch. Right. They're not people that I, have a monthly coffee with and we go over my business. These are people who will give me time 5 minutes at a time. And that's okay, because if you have the right questions, then that's usually all you need. So I've gotten into this habit of asking for mentorship like 5 minutes at a time, and saying, I usually ask for 5 minutes or 3 questions. And I'll say, and I am, I will talk to anybody. I will ask anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. So I've reached out to some really famous entrepreneurs as well. And I've said, look, I just need 5 minutes of your time. That's all. I just have 3 questions. And when you get the opportunity to ask the 3 questions, don't ask stupid questions. And that's one of the things I've heard from a lot of my mentors is like, yeah, when I gave you those 5 minutes, I was expecting the usual questions, but you asked me really impactful questions that I knew you just wanted to learn from my advice and my experiences, and I was happy to share. And usually that will turn into a coffee, or that will turn into more than 5 minutes. So I always reach out to people and just ask for 5 minutes. It works like a charm. I love doing that. And just recognize that there's always something that you can give as well. And that when you want to be of service to your mentors as well, it changes the whole relationship. And if you do that from the beginning, it really lays the groundwork for a very strong relationship, especially when you compare it to how that relationship would be if it was just you asking.
Yeah.
There's so much that you have to give. It doesn't matter if somebody is a lot more experienced than you or has been working for a lot longer than you did. None of that matters. There's always something that you can give, and you can always approach it in that way.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people kind of have that off of their mind, and it's just like, what can I get? What can I get? What can I get? And that's just so off. It's like any other relationship, right? It builds over time, and you want to get to know the person, and you don't just jump into it. So I love that. And especially the 5 minute thing. Super cool. So you have given us so much great advice, and now I want to get personal with you and ask my signature question, which you already have a great video on this, but I would love to know your morning routine. Maybe you can share the first few things you do when you get up in the morning, and how that affects how the rest of your day goes.
Yeah, I think you have an opportunity to set the tone for your entire day even before you open your eyes in the morning. And so for me, that's usually, again, going back to A Course in Miracles, it's usually even before I open my eyes, like, what will you have me do today? Where will you have me go? Just surrendering that day. I also like to write in a journal in the morning, and there's a fantastic journal, the 5 minute journal. It's like a really quick little note that you write at the beginning of the day and end of the day. And so I do that. I do some yoga and just get moving. And then I usually have my green juice. And after that, I usually sit in meditation for a little bit, depending on how I feel. Some days it's short, some days it's a lot longer. It just depends on how I'm feeling and what I'm doing. And then I'll usually have my breakfast and then start the day. So it's usually a solid hour of just me time and focusing on the inner stuff and not worrying about, diving into emails and all that. I do not like wake up and turn on my phone and check my emails right away. There are days if it's during a launch or something, there's a couple weeks a year where sometimes my morning routine will be, quite honestly, cut a little short, and I'm up and I'm working with my team right away. And sometimes those couple weeks are different. But for the majority of the time, no matter where I am in the world or what I'm doing, it's a technology-free morning. And I try not to even do emails until like early in the afternoon. I really focus on what I need to get done first. And that has led me to do some really awesome things. So I think I'm going to stick with that routine. Yeah. I think it works. I think it works well for now. But I think it's important to just move around and connect with yourself and journal and make sure that you're doing the work. I think there's so many of us that feel like we're called to help other people, and we want to be doing work that is going to matter, that's going to impact people's lives, it's going to make a difference in the world. And all of that starts with really getting clear on what you need to be doing and working on yourself and healing yourself. And when you do all that work, that's when you can help other people. That's when you can help other people to heal. And I think we all want to help and be of service. I hear that from so many people that I work with, especially women entrepreneurs. And to change the world and to take on the world, as I say, first you have to take on your world.
Yeah.
And that starts every single morning. Yeah. Because there's always work we need to be doing. And even those of us who have, really deep spiritual practices and things that we do, rituals, and we're at yoga, or we're doing the meditation, we're reading the books, all of that, we still, like, it's an everyday, day-to-day practice. You never get to the point where you're just, oh, hey, I don't have any more work to do. There's always something we need to be working on, and we need to help ourselves before we can help others.
Yeah, you can't give what you don't have, so I love that. And my next question is about your evening routines and the last few things you do to wind down. But I know even before your evening
kind of the
routine,
same.
Yeah, and even before that, something that I learned from you, which is transformational in my life, and you didn't touch on it in your morning routine because it's not part of your morning routine, but it makes your day better, which is that you plan your days in the day before, and you'll make your to-do list the day before. So touching on that and how kind of your afternoons and evenings go, so they're in that mindful way as well.
Yeah, so usually in the evening there's a point where, all devices and technology and all that is done. Time to disconnect and reflect on the day. And again, I usually go back to my journal or do the 5-minute journal and just reflect on the day, a few things that went really well and that I'm grateful for, and maybe something that didn't go so well that I just sort of surrender at that point. I usually do a little bit of meditation again, and I look at my intention for the next day and I plan that day. And yes, it's really important that you plan your day, and same with your week. Usually on Friday or on Saturday morning, I'll plan the following week, just because it's good to start Monday knowing what your intention is already, or it's good to start a brand new day already having those things that you know you need to do, and having that really clear intention so that you're not waking up, you're not just, getting lost in emails before getting any real work done or really moving forward on your own goals. And then you already have that list of things you need to do. So then I think a lot of times people will get up and they'll jump on email. And I'm not sure if it was Brendan Burchard or someone who said that email is always about what everybody else
Yes,
needs.
it's
It's
him.
never
Yeah.
about what you need.
I
And
know. I love
it's
that.
so, so true. You know, your inbox is full of you needing to get back to other people and
Yep.
things that you need to do
And then they run
each
your
with other
day.
people. Exactly. And so people will get up in the morning, first thing, be working on that, clearing their inboxes, and then in the afternoon they're like, okay, what do I need to get done today? Because they didn't already plan their day. And then, you know, by the time you know it, it's dinner time, and you feel like you didn't get a
Unaccomplished.
lot done. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you feel like crap because you feel like you're not, you know, moving forward with what you really want to be doing. And so I also make sure that I work in non-negotiable blocks of time throughout the day, and usually these will be sometime in the evening. And there's always things that I'm working on or studying that have nothing to do with my business. So right now I am doing French lessons.
Cool.
I will do, you know, I'll take in a yoga class or something. I'll do, what are some other weird things that I've done? There's always something like strange. And I've been traveling a lot too. So if I'm in a new place, I just want to like get out and explore and go and get lost in streets and look at art. And I get so much inspiration from that. So I want to make sure I've got done what I need to do, and then I'll plan my next day, and then I just turn off. And then it's all about just me and what I want to do, and making sure that I'm spending time connecting with myself and just having fun. I feel like fun gets lost in a lot of what we do, especially when we are ambitious or we're working a lot, or there's always so many things we need to do. And then there's things you just have to do because you really want to do it and because it's fun, and you need to always be making time for those things as well. So those usually fall in my evening routine as well.
Love that. So let's wrap up with some quickfire questions. The time literally just like flew by. I don't know where an hour went.
I know, I could talk to you forever.
I know. Well, you have to come back. You have to come back. It has to happen.
That would be great. Okay.
So, okay, quickfire. You ready?
Yes.
Favorite color?
I just love colors. Purple? I love white, but everyone always says white's not a color.
It can be a color. It can be color. I love white too.
White.
Favorite day of the week?
Sunday.
Favorite hour of the day?
These are supposed to be fast. I'm so slow. 10 a.m.
Favorite vegetable?
Cucumber.
Favorite fruit?
Green apple.
Favorite go-to breakfast?
Ezekiel cereal with blueberries and coconut shreds.
Ooh, yum. What's
Yum.
the best meal you've eaten in, say, like the last week?
Ooh, well, I was in France last week, so
Oh, wow.
There's a little restaurant in Paris called Le Potager, and it's a little vegan restaurant that does like traditional French food, but as a vegan
Wow.
option. And I had the most divine like Provençal sauce with this vegan burger and this French quinoa with like herb de Provence, and it was just to die for.
Whoa.
I'm just not doing it justice there, but
No, it sounds really good.
food in France is the best.
Wow, amazing. So we talked a lot about trusting your gut and listening to your intuition for guidance. So when would you say in your current life, where are you when you hear your intuition the strongest?
Running, especially on like trails and stuff when I'm like in nature, but anytime by the ocean, when I'm by the ocean, and in the shower. Always in the shower. I have this awesome like chromotherapy lighting
Ooh.
massage jet
Whoa.
shower. And it's like, yeah, it's like a full chromotherapy lighting is that like super relaxing lighting. So you just turn on this awesome like blue lights, and then there's like this rain option. So it feels like you're in the rain with this beautiful like blue lighting. And I just, my boyfriend has to tell me to get out of the shower because I could sit there forever and just get all these ideas and think and reflect and meditate and yeah, I love that shower.
Whoa, no wonder you were excited to get home.
Yeah,
You
I've been
probably missed
traveling so
that.
much. I haven't
Yeah.
used it in a while. Yes, that will be one of the first things I do when I get home.
That's so funny. I love that. What would be your number one practical tip for staying organized and being able to show up fully for your life and be fully present?
Can I do a few things here? Just a few
Totally,
quick
totally.
things. So I think, first of all, you have to organize yourself in a way that works for you. And I feel like everyone thinks that organization comes from an app. If you have the latest and greatest
Right.
productivity or organizational app, that you've got your shit together. And I just find that that's not the case. And this year, people used to make fun of me for still having like a little notebook and day planner. And this year, I've gone back to that little day planner. And I love it. And it's where I can really, I feel more organized. I write little notes, and it's sort of a combination of like day planning and journaling and fun quotes. And I always find little white feathers everywhere I go, like on my path and at my feet. So I like stick all those in there as well. And it's just what works for me. So do what works for you. I think the other thing when it comes to organization and productivity is just doing the thing first that you really don't want to be doing or that you really don't like.
Yeah,
So
eat the
once I'm done
frog.
once I'm done my morning routine, that's exactly what I do. Eat the frog, done. And I find that that is really, really helpful. And the other thing that I would say is just recognizing that you can be a lot more productive and organized by spending more time doing nothing. And we live in this culture where it's really frowned upon if you're doing nothing. And there's a beautiful, Buddhist concept of aimlessness and how, you should go out and explore, not with a purpose, not, okay, I'm going to go out for a walk and this is the block that I'm going to walk, or this is the path that I'm going to walk, but just go and observe everything around you and allow yourself to get lost and just spend a little more time doing nothing. And aimlessness doesn't mean that you don't have a purpose or that you're not being productive. It's actually quite the opposite. So, yeah, those would be my little, I guess that's more productivity for
Those are
me
great.
than organization, but
That's
I think it's
perfect.
really important.
Yeah, those are awesome. So, what in your life are you doing that you're afraid of but you're doing anyways? What's next for you and how are you challenging yourself?
It's a great question. Everything's always a little scary when you do it. And the big thing that I have coming up next is we're relaunching our Conquer Club. That's our flagship product that She Takes on the World Inc. And we are doing something completely different that we've never done before, that hasn't really been done before, and it is really
Cool.
scary. And we're going all in on that. Like we are, I'm betting the farm on that one, as they say,
I'm so
and
excited.
I'm so excited too. And I just feel like I feel so strongly that I just need to put everything into it. So it's a huge investment. It's scary, and at the same time, I think going all in, and all in, I mean like energetically and financially and just all of that. I think it's really powerful when you make that shift and say, you know what, I'm not just going to do this this isn't just a hobby, or this
Yeah.
isn't something that I just want, on the side. Like I want to go all in on this one thing because the calling that's there is just so strong, and the gut feeling on it is just so strong, and I feel like that's what I need to do. And so it's really scary, and at the same time, because I have that mentality of like all in, I feel like there's a lot of really neat things that are falling into place, and I think it's because of that shift in my mindset.
I love that. Yeah, Mastin Kipp has this great quote that's like something like, go all in on plan A because plan B is an effing distraction, you know? And that's been powerful for me too. It's like, do you really want to do this? Like, then make it happen.
And people do get really distracted, right? And there's so many excuses and there's so many little things that can get in the way. And I think ideas people too really struggle with this because there's always going to be a new idea. There's always going to be something else that's going to want to, take up your energy and take your focus off of that one thing that you really should be doing. And it's really powerful to just go all in.
Totally. Next question. What superhero power would you have if you could have one for a day?
Expanding time, which I feel like I'm kind of doing right now.
Yeah.
I feel like I just have an infinite supply of time right now.
I love that you've got a great video about we choose to be busy or not. It's a choice of how you want to feel about things. So I think that really
Exactly.
speaks to that.
And everything that you're doing in a course of a day, you're doing because you said yes to it and because you took that on. That's your choice. So if you feel like you're too busy, if you feel like you don't have time to be doing the things that are calling you and pulling at your heartstrings, then you need to really refocus.
Exactly.
And my friend Danielle Laporte says, a no thank you today leads to the right yes tomorrow. And I love that. I think that's
she's good.
Really powerful.
So good.
So say no thank you more often if something's just going to distract you or if it shouldn't be something that you're spending your time on. And I know that there's at least one thing on your plate right now that you could probably say no to and free up some time for doing things that you really want to be working on.
Yeah, I love that. What's your favorite city that you've traveled to?
Oh, it's so hard. I've been to 80 countries now, 80. And so I've been to a lot of cities. Paris is one that I keep going back to again and again, just because I love the energy and the vibe there so much. I mean, there's just nothing like knowing that you are to sit in a cafe and to be at a table. There's some tables marked like Picasso worked here or like
cool.
Hemingway wrote here. That's just, you don't get that in very many places. Like that creative energy that's just cool. So powerful. So I love that. And then for meditation and really diving inwards, I loved Ubud for that. There's so many cities that I love and countries that I love. Loved Peru as well. I loved being in Cusco, close to Machu Picchu and the Sacred Valley, which is a very special region in Peru that I loved and had so many great experiences. So there's so many. I'll stick to Paris though. Paris is one of those places that I love going back again and again, and there's always something about it. It just totally like drives my creativity and flirts with my spirit.
Ooh, that's a beautiful way to put it. I've never been. We'll have to go. We'll do a retreat or something.
Okay, come. Yeah, absolutely. I go back every year, so you have an invitation.
Oh, yes.
Come visit me, July 2015. I will be there. Or
that
June.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll be doing podcast number 2 there. Video style.
Let's set that intention. That sounds great.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
All right, 3 more quick ones, and then my signature question. So, favorite movie?
Oh, Katie, you're killing me on the having to choose just one thing. Do you know what? When I want a good laugh, I love watching How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
I love that movie. I own it. I can bring it to Paris.
Yeah.
We can watch it.
Okay, that sounds great. We'll watch it. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, it's just such a good, like, romantic comedy. It's totally so cheesy, but it's just like
so
it's
good.
Just one of those movies.
Feel good movie. Favorite book? I know it's so hard.
I love The Giver.
Oh, me too.
One of my favorite childhood books. I can't believe the movie's coming out. Like, this was that announcement and that trailer was
I know, Meryl Streep.
among the happiest moments of my life.
I know. I remember reading it in school as like a fourth grader.
Yes,
and
exactly.
changed my life.
Oh, it was like, yeah, that book as a kid, I loved it. And I read it so many times. So I'd say that's like a childhood book. Haven't read it in a while.
Me neither, but I want to.
Course in Miracles I open every day, but I wouldn't really classify it as a book, but
right.
It's always next to me. It always travels with me. It's always there.
Yeah. Both amazing ones. Love those. Favorite song?
I'm going to have to go with The World Is Mine, just because of my whole little, connection.
Amazing.
With that song. I'm one of those people that, like, every song for me is like, I love it. I listen to it way too many times because I love it, and then I get sick of it. Like, yeah. I remember when that one Alicia Keys song came out. What is it?
This girl
No
is
One.
on fire.
Oh, and that one too. Yes, and that one. Like, she has so many that they'll come out and I'll just love it so much. And I'm like, this is my favoriteest song ever, like ever. And then I'll put it on repeat and I'll listen to it for like 7 days.
That's so funny.
And it'll say like, you've played this song 1,200 times. And then I'm sick of it, and then I won't listen to it unless I hear it on the radio. But yeah, David Guetta, The World Is Mine. We'll stick with that one.
Nice. It's got a nice backstory.
It's really good too, though.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Every once in a while, I'll rap to Empire State of Mind.
Oh, that one is so good. I
like to rap once in a while.
I can't get enough of that song either. Oh, this has been so fun. Okay, so last question. As you know, the name of my blog and the name of this podcast is The Wellness Wonderland. So when I offer that term to you, Natalie, to live in a wellness wonderland, what comes up? What does that mean to you?
Authenticity and being who you know you're meant to be in the world. And I think everyone kind of knows that, whether you are tuned into that or whether, as I keep saying, you let the clouds get in the way. And just recognizing your body as being a temple for your fiery spirit, and recognizing that it matters what you put into your body. It matters the environment that you surround yourself with, the people that you surround yourself with. All of that is always affecting your energy. So to me, a wellness wonderland is just where you feel totally on purpose, and you feel fired up for what's next, and you're excited overall about everything because you're tuned in and you know that you're where you need to be and getting the lessons that you need to be learning, and you just, I think it's like a very deep knowing. And when you have that, I feel like that's my wonderland anyway. And I just know that, we go back to the patience thing too, which I was talking about earlier. I know that I can be patient now because I just have that very deep knowing that I'm doing what I need to be doing, and it doesn't always happen in my time, but it happens in perfect timing. And that's a wellness wonderland to me.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love it. Well, thank you so much for everything you so authentically shared. And thank you, everyone, so much for listening. And hang out with Natalie. We'll have all the links of where to find her and what she's doing and what's current for her in the show notes. So stick around. And thank you so much, Natalie. This has been super fun.
Katie, thank you so much for having me. I adore you, and I honor your path and everything that you're doing. It's amazing, and you are shining a very, very bright light in the world, and it really radiates. So thank you for everything that you're doing and for having me here today. And I look forward to our Paris cuddles and watching
Me too.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and rocking out to David Guetta.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we'll have to bring your shower.
Reading A Course in Miracles and and all that. So
amazing.
Let's make that happen.
Yes. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. You made it all the way to the end. I'll be back next week, but until then, let's stay inspired and keep this conversation going. So tweet at me at Katie Dalebout and our guest with your aha moments from this conversation. And like the Wellness Wonderland on Facebook, so we can all hang out there and discuss how inspired we are and how we'll apply it in our daily lives. And never miss another episode or post from me by signing up for email updates on thewellnesswonderland.com. See you back in Wonderland.